your attention, and I wish you wonderful and interesting discussions in this forum, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, Nova. Thanks, Bettina Glatz-Kremsler. I would now like to ask Matthias Horx and Andrea Martin to join me on the stage here as we hold a short discussion round where we discuss the inputs that both of you gave as the first keynote speakers of the day. There should be a microphone that is waiting in the room. Matthias, please, to my right, Andrea Martin to my left. So if any of you have any questions, now is the perfect time to raise your hand and the person holding the microphone will pass it along to you. I can see him down there, a young man in a colorful shirt. And the lady right there, yes.
Okay. You mentioned, Matthias Horx, that we are not yet feeling at home in our digital society, but you didn't mention the demographic development in the world and in particular Europe. How do you see this coming together?
Well, complex question. There are two different trends also in that which are not paralyzed of this. There is this classical rumor that young people use the internet and older people don't. And that is what we learned in the last 15 years, and it's wrong. It's my sons are reading books. Can you imagine this? And or they hear books. But I think that the biggest increase of usage of the internet will from the older generations in the next years, and we have a second recursive trend, like we call it, which is now a little bit too hard to explain in detail, but we call it down-aging. Down-aging is the process where, while our life expectancy is increasing, in every phase of our life we are becoming younger. So 70-year-old people are now in a physiological and mind set which would have been for a 60-year-old in the 60s or in the 70s. So what we are used to in these kind of developments as linear trends don't have to be automatically true. And I think that is also one of the blockages we have in the discussions about demographic change, that we think in the models of aging of 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago. And this is why we're always coming into this deficit discussions. You know, an older society must be a more pessimistic society, more anti-technology society, and so on. I don't think so. But that's also a question of understanding the changes of life quality and daily social change.
Martin Eichtinger has a question.
Thank you so much. Andrea, you mentioned that Europe could take a lead in the question of ethics and artificial intelligence and ethics and digitalization. Also, Matthias Horx was touching on that, on the role in the society. What precisely do you think that Europe should undertake in this respect? What should the initiatives be that Europe could, embark on?
Yeah. So I think there's already a good start with the principles and the requirements that have been published in April on trustworthy AI and what is required to do so. And a couple of the things that I mentioned, like fairness, explainability, security, and so on, are included in those as well, including that humans should be in control. And this is at the moment in a pilot phase. So basically everyone who wants to can pilot these requirements and see if the assessment checklist that is behind that, if that is usable, and if it can be realistically put into production. And I think if we do this, so I think it's a joint effort of everyone, so basically politics as well as the businesses, the companies, as well as us, dealing with technology, dealing in a sovereign way with the data that we possess or not possess, about our personal data. And I think if we do this, it will become kind of maybe not really an automatism, but it will be kind of ingrained in the way we do AI in Europe. And I think if we can prove that we can do AI and it still conforms to data privacy and it's fair and we can make sure it's explainable and we have these kind of solutions, I think it can become a competitive advantage. But we have to act. It's not sufficient that we just talk about it. We actually have to put it into the real world and realize. So that's why I think this pilot phase for the principles and the requirements is a very important one, because even though these principles need to be adapted, possibly, it's already tried out, so to say.
Thank you very much. We can take a couple more questions from the audience. The young man, or the young lady actually in this room.
Hello, my name is Flavia Lubrescu, and as a user experience designer, I'm also very committed to this idea of humanizing technology. However, working primarily in the tech industry, I feel that those principles are maybe not very present in the daily lives of the business sector. You know, they are more present in the academia, in politics, but maybe they don't talk so much about them in real-life business context. They're not so well assimilated. And I was wondering what we could do as European decision makers, or institutionally speaking, in order maybe to encourage this process of humanizing the digital industries.
Either one, Matthias, maybe?
I'm still thinking. It's hard. I think basically what we have to know is there's a contradiction between the interests of industries very often. They want to sell what they want to sell, you know? And but there's one beautiful mechanism of markets which sorts it out. It's called failure. I mean, we are at the moment we're having a bigger project in terms of technological innovation. We try to analyze failure and why it comes up. You know, why, for example, Google Glasses didn't work. You remember the Google Glasses, this kind of augmented reality device which would split immediately society, because if someone has it on and the other person doesn't, then you create a kind of informational gap between them both, and this leads to aggression. Or for example, I'm living in a house on the outskirts of Vienna called the Future Evolution House, and we are testing daily technology, and our rate of putting things in the cellar, like I call it, is around 80%. So we are testing, for example, speech assistants, you know? And of course we have a subjective access to it. So we are specific people, and people react different to technologies. But I think, as much as I know, is that a lot of tech companies now are coming into a phase where they understand that they just can't press what they want into the markets just to get more profits. And they are changing their methods of innovation. They are making more kind of design thinking processes. They're making more laboratories with people, with with customers who are real, not customers who are brainwashed to say what they want. Mm-hmm. You know, you can, in a marketing test, you can easily sell a thing to someone and he doesn't even realize it, but suddenly he likes it. You know? And these kind of irrational psychological humanistic elements are in a lot of big companies we are working with. We can feel that there is a shift in mind, because everybody understands that especially the digital technologies have an aspect of solutionism. You know, sometimes digital technology is just technology in search of problems. You know, and if you don't have a problem, then you have to invent it. This was also quite interesting in your speech. You said, well, why do we need AI? We need AI to cope with this huge bunch of data we have. So technology is creating its own problems we have to solve with technology. That's a marketing concept, isn't it? And I think that it's fraction. And in the end, we will have also, and I think it's good that customers, that people in the civil society are asking nasty questions to the tech firms, you know? Why is that? Is that really what we need and what we want? And this kind of skepticism, I think skepticism has a European history. Americans are not very skeptic in a lot of ways. I mean, it's a cliche, but we can see that they're thinking much more linear in terms of market penetration. And I think we just have to develop new formats of innovational techniques, and it's happening. You know, it's quite often not so visible, but I can give you a lot of examples, especially in the car industry, but it always needs one precondition. That is the feeling of coming crisis. And that's the problem that they don't often, the car industry is a very good example. They went on and on and on. And now they understand that something in their system they created is creating an internal crisis. They are so successful that they create a crisis. And now they try to solve it with technology, but I think it will not work. We have to decide on a certain point if we want to make more bicycling or not. We can't only make it with robot driving. That's an illusion. And illusions are also part of the human mind, and we like illusions.
Maybe a quick word from
Yeah,
Andrea.
very quickly. I absolutely agree that the market will also show, because if we don't humanize technology, at the end probably fewer people will buy it. So that's also kind of self-inflicting. The other thing, because you mentioned design thinking, I think that's a very good technique to find out what we really need to create for the end users, because we need to involve the end users. The other thing with design thinking is that it has to be cross-disciplinary. Because also the examples that I used, I mean, no one can design an AI or whatever healthcare system just when you are a technology person. You need the medical knowledge, so you have to work with the psychologists, with the doctors, and so on. And most of it is true, the cross-disciplinary topic is true for most of the solutions we're talking about. That cannot be created just by technology people, because they just don't have the expertise in all of these areas.
I know many more of you have their hands raised, but unfortunately we are out of time for this segment. I think Matthias Horx and Andrea Martin both are going to stick around for the lunch break.
But so there's no food now, isn't it?
Not now, but at 12:45.
So I would go.
If you okay, so maybe if you have the courage to ask Matthias Horx a question before he leaves, you can do that there. Thank you both for those on-the-spot answers and for the short discussion. And I'd like to ask you both to take a seat again as we prepare